Cuphead and Mugman lose their souls in a bet against the devil. After pleading with him, they come to an agreement to collect the souls of his runaway debtors, and are given until midnight tomorrow to do so. That's why I'm giving myself 24 hours to Platinum Cuphead. I'll have to run and gun through several levels, find every coin to buy utility to help me defeat the bosses, then must do it all again in the game's harder difficulty, Expert. Let's begin where I learned the basics from platforming, which includes the all-important parry slap to gunning down foes with a rapid and special shot. I walk outside and come across someone who gives me free coins in which I can spend at Pork Rind's Emporium. He has a variety of items from weapon types and charms. I decide to purchase the Spread Shot, a short-range weapon with great damage, which will be greatly used in the upcoming fight. The root pack in Botanic Panic. I'm greeted by a potato who shoots out mud and the occasional worm. Any object we see that is pink, we'll be able to parry it, and doing so is important because it grants an instant super card, allowing us to use a super move. I shred the potato with my new weapon, and then an onion arises who cries, resulting in teardrops falling from the sky. Eventually, a carrot takes his place and uses its mind to summon Seeking missiles and lasers to hit me. However, it's all too easy as I dodge and weave while holding my shot to defeat the root pack for my first trophy. Knowing the trophy list in a 24-hour challenge is vital, because I did not get an A rank. Depending how you do in the fight, you'll score a rank. We'll need to score at minimum an A- on all bosses. It involves defeating the boss in under 2 minutes on regular, parrying 3 pink objects during the fight, using 6 of the super cards and not taking a hit. Though there is a bit of leniency as we only need to complete 3 out of the 4 requirements. I managed to not only get an A rank, but I also defeat them without taking a hit for another trophy. I then meet Ribby and Croaks, a pair of martial artists with throwing punches and annoying flies. They also randomly turn into a slot machine where they can get a different attack each time, making our spacing important to dodge them. In this fight, I would unlock my next trophy for completing 20 parries. I move upwards in the overworld and complete my first run and gun level, where I simply must make it from point A to point B without dying. However, I must make sure to collect every coin I see throughout. There will be a few more of these levels in the future, as well as unlocking trophies tied to them. Next up was Goopy Legrand, a jumping slime with a powerful punch, but with my spread shot he stands no chance. Then dogfighting against Hildeberg. She has a variety of supporting projectiles, the ability to transform with new attacks, and after a few attempts I claim her soul contract. I move on to Treetop Trouble to collect more coins, then find myself at the Mausoleum where I must protect this vase against the incoming ghost with my parries. I successfully protect the vase and Legendary Chalice appears from within, who rewards me with a super art ability. Upon exiting, a boatman appears and exclaims that Chalice needs help in a far off isle. I decide to check it out and would realise this is the delicious Last Course expansion. To put it short, I would receive the Astral Cookie Charm, and it would allow me to play as Miss Chalice, where she has one more hit point than Cuphead, a double jump, dash parry, and an invincible roll. And with this being a time challenge, I was going to need all the help I could get. While there was a massive benefit to this, I would also realise accessing the expansion was a slight mistake, which would briefly affect my progress towards the Platinum Trophy, but we'll discuss that later. I make my way back to Inkwell Isle 1 and found a shortcut for cutting corners, then took on Cagney Carnation in Floral Flurry, a flower with many projectiles and additional enemies that can easily overwhelm you if not dealt with. It was a struggle at first, especially getting used to Miss Chalice's parry. Eventually, I land an extra special move for the knockout and unlock 3 trophies. A Walk in the Park for defeating every boss in Inkwell Isle 1, Ceramic Strike for defeating a boss with an extra special move, and Sheriff for obtaining an A rank on all bosses in Isle 1. This would allow me to go to Inkwell Isle 2, where I met Baroness von Bonbon, who summons a variety of sugary threats, from an exploding waffle to Jawbreaker Pac-Man, a spitting gumball machine, floating candy corn, and a bouncy muffin. As soon as we defeat 3 of them, we're allowed to target the Baroness as she chases us down with her castle while throwing her own skull at us. I'd also unlock another trophy here for completing 100 parries. Soon after, I fought Digimi the Great, who can summon and become a variety of projectiles. Next was Beppy the Clown, who makes use of the amusement park attractions to attack you. I make sure to pay attention to the background as you can see the incoming roller coaster. I'd then visit Funfair Fever, where I would unlock Bouncing Ball for parrying 5 times before hitting the ground. Wally Warbles was next with his spitting eggshells and sharp feathers. Shortly after, his son tries to attack us with his rotating egg shield and laser gun before Wally appears once again, with a pair of medics as they spit out of variety of objects at us. However, with our bomb attachment, we can slowly whittle him and get the knockout with a super art for another soul contract. This would unlock me a trophy as I managed to defeat the boss with a super art. Funhouse Frazzle was a little confusing, and I eventually made my way out to fight Grim Matchstick. I made use of a new weapon called the Lobber. It has an arced shot, which made hitting Grim much easier, resulting in me having defeated every boss in Inkwell Isle 2, though I did have to do another attempt to get the A rank and unlock the next trophy. As we progress into Inkwell Isle 3, King Dice talks to the devil thinking that they have overestimated us. However, the devil doesn't think this will be a problem as he waits. With more soul contracts to obtain, I take on Rumour Honeybottoms, where I must deal with the security guard first before she attacks us with missiles and magic. She then transforms into an airship with flying punches and a dangerous saw blade that takes up half the screen. Next was Captain Brinybeard and his crew, from a dropping barrel to an octopus gun, to summoning a variety of sea creatures to dodge. I held my running spread shot at an angle to consistently hit him before his ship gets involved, with spitting bombs to becoming angered with a giant laser beam. After dealing with them, I went to the Perilous Pier, which would become my least favourite run and gun level. Towards the end, you must consistently dodge a pearl shooting clam and numerous jumping shrimp while trying to stay aboard the swimming octopus, while also parrying the anchor for him to shoot down the upcoming terrain. Roughly 25 minutes later, I got through, and shivered at the thought of revisiting this level again for a future trophy. Anyway, speaking of which, I completed the last Miscellaneous level to obtain the final super art. I then ventured out to sea to fight Cala Maria, a mermaid with plenty of sea creatures, from floating pufferfish to cannon-shooting turtles and dashing ghosts. After enough damage is done, electric eels cause her to become a gorgon, which is bad for us as she can turn us into stone, while the eels fire electric bolts. As we continue to fire, her head splits off into a narrowing cave, where getting hit by the stone gaze could be devastating due to the floating spikes. Eventually I get the knockout and move on to Rugged Ridge, where for being the last run and gun level in the game was surprisingly simple. I managed to pick up all the coins to unlock a trophy for getting every coin in all the levels. I travelled upwards in Inkwell Isle 3 and found myself at the junkyard, where I needed to defeat Dr. Carl's robot, a bit of a nuisance with his 3 weapons, each capable of producing their unique attacks, from a laser to mini ships and a twin beam. However, even after breaking them, they have a second function, from a deadly exploding bomb to a barrage of nuts and bolts, where he'll like to hold this magnet to interfere with the plane's movement. Soon enough, his heart will be exposed, but it is not over as the head detaches from the body and flies around the screen while deploying bombs. After doing enough damage, Dr. Carl reveals himself and begins to spray out crystal shards in all directions, with the odd one being parryable. I used the chance to land a super art for the knockout. I then went to the theatre and fought Sally stage play, a lot of jumping over objects that occupy the floor. I made use of the chaser weapon in the final phase as they home in on Sally because you don't get much time to attack. The railroad was next with the Phantom Express, filled with numerous ghouls, from bouncing eyeballs, skeleton punches and lightning breath, before ending the fight against the pilot by targeting its engine. And finally, there was Werner Werman down south, a rodent who uses household leftovers as a battle tank and bottle caps as saw blades. During the fight, he eventually succumbs to the sudden appearance of a cat. It tries to swipe us with its claws, and ghosts of rodents appear to throw projectiles at us, but our spread shot does enough damage before they become a problem. We unlock 2 trophies here, one for beating every boss in Inkwell Isle 3, and the other for achieving an A rank on them. This meant I could now enter Inkwell Hell and must participate in a gauntlet against King Dice before meeting the devil. He gives us a rolling dice that we must parry, and depending on what we land, we'll move that many spaces on the board. Unique bosses are tied to their respective number, and sometimes they'll have a heart, which means we'll gain extra health, which is incredibly useful. There are 9 different bosses here. However, I'll just discuss the easiest path that I took after several attempts. 2 will put us against Chips Betterkin, who just moves side to side with a random amount of poker chips. Next was 4, Pip and Dot, a domino who spits out projectiles while you run against the spiky floor. And number 8 for Mangosteen, an 8-ball who fires the occasional laser with jumping enemies. We roll the dice one last time to fight against the king. He uses his hand to summon walking cards, however you can just stand behind them to prevent yourself from being hit, because it took me far too long to realise that Miss Chalice can parry the hearts above, rather than having to take a hit to parry the card itself. I'd commit with the spread shot when King Dice was vulnerable and take him down for the trophy Casino Night. Unfortunately, I wasn't done with this fight just yet, as you need to beat it without getting hit. It is slightly misleading though, you need to have 3 hearts remaining instead. We already have 4 as Miss Chalice and can go for the extra hearts on the board to stack them up to make the fight against King Dice even easier. It was now time to meet the devil. Seeing that we have all the soul contracts in hand, he asks us to hand them over, and if we agree, we unlock the trophy Selling Out. Now it was time for the actual battle, is what I would say, but I end up taking a dinner break, which is why the timer has gone up drastically. The devil has many tricks, from summoning the occasional imp to run through the battlefield, to becoming a dragon that takes up half the screen, or a spider that descends from the ceiling, and of course we can't forget those firing projectiles. His skeleton then jumps deeper into hell, where we must follow and fight the gigantic devil. Dodging flaming casino chips and levitating axes, he gets angry and summons spitting imps, but I make use of my super art to take an additional hit. He begins to cry as the fight is almost over, and I get the knockout to unlock 3 trophies. The first for defeating the devil, the second for obtaining every A rank in Inkwell Hell, and lastly for completing the game on normal. Cuphead and Mugman had saved the day. They destroyed the soul contracts, releasing the Inkwell Isles residents from eternal servitude to the devil, and had an all-day celebration. However, I could not celebrate just yet, as I still needed to beat the game in expert mode. It had taken me around 6.5 hours to beat the game. This left me with a large chunk of time to unlock the remaining trophies. So let's get a few miscellaneous ones, such as finding every coin. We get most of them from the run and gun levels, however there are a few hidden around the overworld. I then went to the casino to fight King Dice again, as there is a boss named Fearlap on Space 6. It is a plane level, and when we hold right trigger, this shrinks the plane, where we move quicker but our bullets do less damage. We must stay in this form for the entire fight to defeat the boss for a trophy. Even though I had every coin in the game, I had made a mistake with Pork Rind's Emporium, as you get a trophy for buying everything, but as the expansion adds more items, you can buy these beforehand. This meant I did not have enough coins to buy the products for the trophy, I would have to delve further into the DLC. I found a coin in Miss Chalice's tutorial and the overworld. I had to get more by participating in a parry only fight, and soon enough I had the coins needed to buy all the remaining items for the trophy. It was now time to focus on the expert mode playthrough. This increases the difficulty by adding health to the boss, spawning more enemies and changing attacks. I'd begin to make my way from Inkwell Isle 1, and because I had just finished my playthrough, the fights should be fresh in my mind, but it was quite the reality check when I first started to go through the initial bosses. At least you don't have to worry about going for A ranks here, though our next trophy we did have to worry about getting an S rank. This is perfecting the fight by playing on expert, defeating the boss in under 2 minutes, maintaining free health, landing 3 parries, and using 6 supers. This sounds a little difficult, but the root pack is extremely easy to perfect, and with Miss Chalice's 4 health, you have 1 free hit to get through. The first few bosses weren't terrible. They took me a few tries to get used to the speed and health pools, meaning I couldn't commit with the spread shot as long. I would reach my first problematic boss, Hildeberg. In fact, I'll just say I dislike every plane level in expert mode. However, we'll discuss that later. I decided to skip this boss for now and start going for the rest. Some were easier than others. Baroness von Bonbon was annoying because as you're trying to focus on the big enemy, she likes to summon these jelly beans that walk along the floor. She also throws 2 instances of her head in the final phase, making it more chaotic. Dijimi the Great is a flying level, but I surprisingly managed to get through it quicker than I expected. Grim Matchstick felt like it was easier on expert than it was on regular. Rumour Honeybottoms wasn't too much of a problem. Werner Werman's moveset was already relatively straightforward to understand, so there was a quick win there. Sally Stagepay, Captain Brinybeard and Phantom Express didn't take too long. Before I knew it, I was at the devil within 11 hours. While he was technically the final boss of the game, I had skipped a few of the fights, notably the plane levels. I said earlier that I disliked them on expert, and that is because there's just so much going on. So many types of projectiles flying towards you at all times. The higher health pools meant the fight would go on even longer, meaning more precise dodging. So I guess you can call it a skill issue. I switched from Miss Chalice to Cuphead with the Twin Heart Charm to give me a total of 5 hit points points to try and maximize my chance of winning. Dr. Carl's robot was frustrating. When you break the laser, it reveals a scrap cannon which just constantly fires. Then breaking the ship dispenser produces the seeking missiles instead. Then his final phase, where he constantly throws out crystals, felt like it would never end, and the occasional foreground would just overlap the attack. Maria had so much going on in many of the phases, from dodging pufferfish and flying ghosts at the same time, to getting turned to stone while being bombarded by electrical shots, in addition to having enough hit points to make it through the final phase due to the lack of space to efficiently dodge the stone gaze. Then there was Wally Warbles, constantly spitting out eggshells that break into even more pieces at a faster pace. In the second phase, you can't stay too close because the laser will instantly hit, but if you are too far, the rotating eggs will get you. This is where I began to really utilize the ability to shrink to dodge these kind of attacks, and it's probably the reason why I struggled a lot more than I did, as I didn't utilize it as often as I should. I was getting really frustrated with these bosses, and after roughly 12 hours of gameplay, I had to have a rest. Do you ever get that thing where you constantly do something for a long period of time, you feel like you're getting worse at it, and by simply having a break, you manage to complete it within a few attempts? Well, that's what happened. Oh my days, I was literally right there. Right, good. Good work. Pre-fire him. Bomb. Finally, beat the devil at his own game, complete the game on expert. Oh my god, this boss is the worst on expert. I realised that I did not update the timer after returning to the game, so I updated it accordingly, bringing me to around 20.5 hours. I had just under 4 hours to get the last trophy before the platinum, and that was to complete all the run and gun levels as a pacifist. This means not defeating any enemy. I would make use of the super art that grants invincibility, as well as switching between the smoke bomb and the twin heart charm depending on the level. Inkwell R1 went smoothly other than forgetting I need the super art for the end. Inkwell R2 was a bit confusing at first because it turns out you can duck under the duck. Who would have thought? Then you can walk through this wall while it has its mouth open. Had a little struggle with parrying the gravity switch to then dash to the platform while dodging the trumpet. Now it was time for Inkwell R3. Perilous Piers is the hardest one. The early and middle sections are all about patience, but once you get towards the end with the octopus traveling the sea, you get bombarded with so many things to dodge. I would plan by getting the super fill by parrying the pink fish earlier in the level to get some invincibility towards the end. Then Rugged Ridge is quite simple with the smoke bomb. You bait out the boomerangs, then jump past them. At first I was a little confused with the gate, but you can parry their face to jump over, and it's precision platforming towards the end while running away from the Cyclops. Give me the platinum! Pacifist! Complete all levels without killing an enemy. Grand Uproar. Obtain all other trophies. 21.5 hours. And that was it. I had finally Platinum Cuphead for the first time with the help of Miss Chalice.